Hey, today we're doing the last set prop piece for the sci-fi short film I have in pre-production, and then we're putting it to bed. Literally. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? Anthony Ferraro here, Crate Sci-Fi. Well, as I've been doing for the past month, I've been building props and set pieces for my sci-fi short film I have coming up called Starfisher. And, I talk about this in my book. This is sort of my process when I don't have money for a project. I do everything I can, build the sets, build the costumes, write the script, do all these things, and then I try to get some momentum going and then shoot the film. So now I'm getting to the end where only thing left to do now is to book a space and to shoot it, right? So this is the last piece. And when I say we're putting it to bed, I mean that literally because I'm making a bed, a sci-fi bed. The character, it's sort of like an old man in the sea, an older man at the end of his life. He's in a tiny ship. It's all very cramped, kind of sad. And so he does have a few scenes where he's in bed, kind of can't get out of bed. I think you all can relate. I'm rambling, but I'm rambling because, I made a bed. A sci-fi bed, Not much to it, but once you get into it, you get excited and you add little details. And I was able to add some foam hexagons that were offcuts from when we made the engine. So it's fun. And it came out good, and I'm happy with it. So let's just get into the build. All right, here we go. Bed Bath & Beyond, Home Depot. So first up, got to get some lumber, cheap lumber, light lumber. Lumber's gone down lately, thank goodness, who knows. So here I am just thinking about it, pacing back and forth, because I'm not in my shop. I'm out here in the elements, exposed, need to go on a diet, that's in the works. So here I am thinking, all right, got to make a box. I come from the theater. Used to make set flats all the time, so it's a similar thing, but it's all about, I like to kind of measure everything and cut everything almost as if you're creating like your own kit. So I'm figuring out what's going to be the best dimensions. I mean, I have a specific dimension of the mat or mattress thing that I'm doing here, but I'm trying to figure out how to best use this wood without wasting anything. So I'm, measuring wood, cutting wood. Now, skill saws, power drills, power tools. I've talked about this before. Like, for me personally, Harbor Freight is your friend. I'm using some tight bond here because glue is better than screws. You see there how carefully I put it on there once it starts dripping everywhere. Now, Harbor Freight, I just get all those tools and I use them a few times a year and it's worth it. So then Temu, again, too, like these carpenter, for squaring up corners, go and get these on Temu for like $4. Again, they're cheap. This is not for professional use, but for like a DIY guy and you're making boxes like 2 times a year, these are amazing. Right? Starting to sound like a broken record, but just trying to share what I've learned. And then now, once everything's screwed, I just go through with the tight bond, and just because the glue, like I said, is ultimately much stronger than the screws. So now I just got some cheap hardboard here, and I'm just going to use that for the base. And I'm just trying to deal with what I have. I bought it in a 2-foot width, but that didn't work out. But wait a second. Read my book. Buy my book. My book will explain it all. Why I'm doing this. So what I was saying is the hardboard, right? So I bought it at the 2-foot width. But, I made the frame 2 feet wide, but I didn't compensate for, the 1/2 inch that the wood is. So then it's, I don't know, 2 feet wide, less than an inch, right? So I gotta fix the hardboard, and that's after measuring twice. So, I just like to share these things, warts and all. And again, this is just a substructure for a set piece that's going to be on set for one day. So, I don't pull it apart and carry out. Like if I was building something integral for my house, you know, you'd have to scrap it and start over again. You just have to. But this is, you know, that's why I enjoy building this stuff, right? It's forgiving. So now I'm just basically making a platform, making a floor, making a deck, right? I'm out of focus there because, you know, one-man show, but I'm gluing and screwing. Gluing and screwing. That sounds like a hot and steamy novel. All right, so now I just want to get rid of these nubs because, again, this will be on set. I'll tell somebody, hey, grab the bed. They'll grab it, and of course, they'll pierce themselves. So we want to avoid that. Here, I'm just hitting it with some spray paint. This is just a base coat because I know I'm going to use some foam rubber and some truck bed lining, but I just want to, I mean, this is not primer, but I'm priming it with this cheap dollar paint. And then there I have this rubberized undercoat that I bought by mistake once. So my first thought is I'm going to use this. I will go on to wrapping it in like thin foam, but if this would have worked, I would have stuck with it. That looks pretty good, but it's still like, yeah, that's a piece of wood. So now I'm in my shop and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cover, I have all this arts and crafts foam that I got from the dollar store, has the tacky back. So I'm thinking, you know what? You know, these are like paper, like 8.5 by 11 or whatever it is. So I'm like, you know, if I cut it into 3 strips, I could do this. And my idea is to wrap the edge of the frame in this foam. And then that way I'll be able to paint it and then it'll kind of mask that it's wood. So again, I front load, got all my pieces ready. Got the Super 77, which is basically like a spray rubber cement. Maybe not. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong about that, but that's what it seems like. So here, you let that set, and then now this has already got the tacky back, so I don't have to put a coat on the back of that. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting it around the edge, and then I'm going to wrap it over, and this is going to give me a look, right? It's going to add value for 2 of those packs. I think I used maybe 3. So for $3, and you see there, that looks better than wood. Now in my engine video, I made these hexagons for the engine, and then these were like the offcuts. So I saved them because they're hexagons, and you can always use a hexagon in sci-fi. So here I'm just covering up the seams, and it just adds a little bit of production value, a little interest. So then on Temu, I got these camping mats because the one side is silver and it's, I dare say, futuristic, right? It's like, okay, it's like a mat. Now the interesting thing is, so this mat I'm going to put on here, this is the bed. This works exactly as I hoped and imagined it would. But once I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, you know, if there's ever, it's not cost effective. What I'm thinking now is like a wall piece. So you see there in the background as I'm putting this on, I have the Home Depot sci-fi walls that I make. And now looking at that, right, I'm like, oh, that could be a good wall piece. But it's too expensive. Those panels from Home Depot are like $2.50. Those are like $10. But anyway, now I need a pillow. Now this is an inflatable pillow. I didn't want an inflatable pillow, but I like the shape and the texture. So what I'm going to do is cut it apart and then just put some hard foam in the middle there. And this is scrap foam. Again, I always like on this channel when I show you that I'm building stuff from scraps. And then here, there's just all this, you know, warning text, because I guess, I don't know, people eat these or suffocate themselves with them. So I just cover that with black marker just in case it flips over on filming day, but most likely you'll never see the back of this, so this is just a safety precaution. Now I'm just doing a slice in the middle of this, slicing off all these sections so that I can put that foam in there. And I didn't realize there was those different sort of valleys in there. So here I had to cut off the inflator, the blowing mechanism. And I'm just covering that with some gaff tape. And again, you know, I talk about this a lot on my channel. The reason why all my projects are in a world that's all dirty and scruffy is because those are the kind of props I can afford to make, and those are the kind of props that I like to make, because it's like, oh, I can put tape on this pillow because it totally fits the vibe we're going for, right? If I was trying to make like a Space 1999 or Star Trek, it wouldn't work so great. Some more 77. Use a lot of this stuff, and you know, the can actually goes pretty far. I get a lot of use out of this. So now I just got some metallic silver. I'm just going to do a little dry brush on here. That's why I'm glad that I went to the foam. And this is just going to give it a little kick of light and make it seem like it's metallic. And then there's a close-up of that. And that's working for me, right? Better than the truck liner. So now back to the pillow. I got this little foam. And then now, as I'm stuffing it in there, I tear it open. And just like I said previously, that's fine, because I'll just put a piece of tape on it and it'll totally fit the vibe of what we got going on here. So now I'm using the gaff tape because it's I don't know, I prefer it to duct tape, but duct tape I'll also end up using in this just because it gives it like a certain look. And then there is the back. Boom, boom, boom. That gaff tape is not going anywhere, at least for a day. And like those little tabs sort of give it like, yeah, this guy's been using this pillow way too long. And then here I just make like a little band-aid. There's no hole there, but I'm like, you know what? Let's lean into it, right? So that it's like this gross pillow. And now I got my movie paints, my nicotine that you know I love. And I'm just going to sort of dull down and dirty this up. You could do this with just some really cheap acrylic paint like umber with water. And then now I use the tapes because in this particular film and the other props I made, I do a lot of tape. And the idea is like, it's so low rent, the ship that this guy is on, that he's fixing things with duct tape and aluminum tape. And I think it just adds to the overall vibe of the piece. Now here, you know, when you take off a pillar cover, sometimes it's not too pretty under there. So I'm going for that vibe. And that nicotine spray really brings that home. So a quick run to Joann's. I'm like, oh, I need a bedspread. Need something like hexagon-ish. There it is. And the good thing too, because this is such a crummy bed, that typically if this was a different film, I would probably like sew the edges of that, make it nice. But I'm like, you know what, for this, it's just fine if it's all ragged like that. So now I'm going to get my powders. And here I got my schmear powders. And these are great because they look absolutely filthy, but it's not toxic. You know, it's not dirt and grease on the actor. It's just this powder that will just come off in the shower. Blow that off with a little bit of air. Love my air. Boom. And then I hung this up in the back, and I just kind of beat that with a broom to get rid of the loose pieces. And there it is. I just kind of stuck it in the corner with all the other pieces piling up for this movie. And yeah, that looks filthy, but it's not going to look like that on film in the final thing. It'll work just fine. Liking that. Yeah, it's a bed. It's a space bed. It's a spaceship bed. That's what it looks like, right? That's the main thing especially with props. You need to tell a story, right? So in that bed, what story are we telling? It's a bed in a spaceship. It's tiny. It's too small, so it's uncomfortable, right? So it's like, he's not in luxury. And then it's filthy, right? So hygiene's not a big thing with this guy. So it all helps to tell the story. And speaking of filthy, you know, I use those powders and I use those sprays, and there's a reason for that, right? You could throw it in the backyard and kick it down the road and, you know, cover it in dirt, but then an actor has to live in that. I mean, I don't know, maybe method actor would appreciate that. I still don't think so. So I always I use the stage dirts and stuff because, you know, somebody's going to be putting that on their body and stuff. So I always kind of point out to the actors, you know, here's the stuff that I put on there. You know, it's not toxic. What it is, it looks filthy, but it's not filthy. And most actors don't care, but I kind of always like to share that with them because you want them to feel comfortable getting in there. But yeah, it's a space bed. And like I said, you know, this is what I talk about in my book. I don't have a budget to make this short film, but I want to make this short film. So I wrote it. That was free. I rewrote it. That was free. It cost a lot of time. And then I start making the sets on the weekend and the props and the costumes. And it's been months, right? So I had no budget, but it's like, yeah, it's Saturday. I want to make a costume this weekend. I spend $30 out of my pocket. And it's like, you know, some people go on a fishing trip or go out and have an expensive lunch and watch the game and drink pitchers of beer and drink cheeseburgers. Sounds good. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm making costumes. And I only say that because people get crazy, right? They're like, well, it's not zero budget and low budget. Like, no, it's not. But this is how I do it. So I creep up on it. So now I'm at the point where the only thing left to do now is to shoot it. So I got to figure that out because I have a garage full of this stuff. It's the momentum budget. That's what I call it. Check out the book. It'll explain that. So, as always, I hope you found this useful. Check out the Patreon. Over on Patreon, the only thing I do have left to build is like these beer cans because he's drinking beer all the time. But that's very simple. So I'll probably throw that up on my Patreon. So you might want to check that out. It helps to support the channel. Check out the merch, but the avatar will tell you all about that. And remember, I'm just here to help make sci-fi.
Hey, I'm just the avatar, but you might want to check out this video, maybe that video. For sure, subscribe if you haven't, and check out the merch. Buy some merch, that really helps. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the avatar.